Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, PBM, Customers Bank, Collins Building Services, AmTrust Title Insurance Company, Marks Paneth, Capital One Bank. Additional funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from Amerant Bank, Bank of America, Citizens Bank, Dime Community Bank, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties LLC Handler Real Estate Organization, Hodges Ward Elliott Inc., Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Catsimatidis Red Apple Group, Keysight Capital Partners, New Banks, Meridian Capital Group, Ocean First Bank, People's United Bank, RPW Group, TD Bank, and these friends. Boy, oh boy, I want to play hockey. Now maybe I want to play baseball. Maybe I want to play golf. But I have the ultimate athlete and community leader and philanthropist, Clark Gillies, number 9, Hall of Famer, New York Islanders. Thanks for being here today.
It's great to be with you, Mike. Can't wait to do the show.
Moose Jaw, tell me about Moose Jaw, growing up in Moose Jaw, and how the family came there from Scotland.
Well, how they got there from Scotland is a mystery to me. I'm sure they came over on a boat way back when. Growing up in Moose Jaw was, I think, for somebody that wanted to spend his childhood the way I did, just playing sports and staying out of trouble. Moose Jaw being a town of about 33,000 people at the time, there was very, very few things you could do to get into trouble. So I was able to really play a lot of sports, do the things that I really enjoyed, and I'm still just a big kid from Moose Jaw. I never lost it.
Your father was a big supporter of your athletic abilities, and he worked at Eaton's of Canada. Tell me a little bit about your dad and mom.
Yeah, my dad was a pretty good athlete himself. Growing up, he played a lot of baseball. His nickname was Slugger. So apparently he had a lot of home runs and had a good baseball career. I believe he was a first baseman. Didn't play much hockey. He refereed hockey quite a bit, apparently, from what I understand. He and my mom both worked, so we were kind of turnkey children, my brother and my sister and I. Mom and dad were at work all day, so we get home from school and have to make our own lunch and things like that. But we thought we had everything we needed. We didn't really want for anything. We had 3 square meals on the table every day, and thanks to our parents, they made all that happen for us.
And unfortunately, your dad passed on at a young age of 58.
Yeah, it caught us all by surprise. I was here in New York. He died June 9th of 1978. I was only 24 years old at the time, and he had a massive heart attack and unfortunately was taken from us. But if you believe in everything you're supposed to believe in, I'm sure he was watching all the Stanley Cups from up high. So, but he also had the opportunity to see you play professional baseball, and hockey. He did. Early on in my career, he saw a lot. He watched the majority of my games growing up, especially during my junior career. He would travel the 45 minutes to where I was playing, and he and my mom and watch every game. So he was able to see my development years. Unfortunately, he wasn't around for the Stanley Cup years.
Some people call you Jethro. Okay, how'd you get the name Jethro?
I got that nickname my rookie year. I didn't have any place to stay after training camp broke up. So Eddie Westfall, the captain of our team, invited me to stay at his house. He said, "You'll stay with me until you can find an apartment." So I stayed there with Eddie, and whenever I was home by myself, he'd walk through the door, and he said, every time I come home, you're watching the Beverly Hillbillies. He said, what do you think you're this guy, Jethro? And we kind of laughed at it. And to this day, that's the only thing Eddie calls me is Jethro. I sometimes wonder whether he knows my real name or not. But
You know, people know you as the hockey player. People fail to know that, like, at 16 years of age, you were recruited or scouted and got a couple of dollars to play for a division of the Houston Astros, correct?
that's correct. I had a tryout in my hometown of Moose Jaw with two scouts. Actually, one of them was Pat Gillick, who went on to have a very strong management career in Major League Baseball, and the other guy was named Eddie Matthews. So they were scouting southern Saskatchewan to see if there was some raw talent up there they might have missed. And my coach told them about me, and they came in. I had a one-day tryout. They had a brief meeting with my dad, and next thing you know, my dad's telling me that they want to sign me to a baseball contract, and they're going to give me a $5,000 signing bonus and pay me $500 a month. And I go, $5,000? They want to give me $5,000 to play hockey or to play baseball? Are you kidding? And then $500 a month, US at that time, of course, compared to the $320 I was making working my butt off all week long and not really enjoying myself. I said, I'll try that. And so off I went to Covington, Virginia, to the instructional league in it was a Houston Astro franchise in the Appalachian League. And that's where my professional baseball career started.
So how long was your professional baseball career?
I played baseball in the summer. It was an instructional league, mostly of high school guys and college guys. So we went there roughly June 20th and played until August 30th. And most guys either went back to high school or we went back to college. In my case, I went back to play hockey. I did that for 3 summers, and at the end of the 3rd summer, the Astros asked me, we think you have potential to be a pretty good baseball player, but we need you to make a choice. Do you want to play hockey or do you want to play baseball? And it was a pretty easy choice for me. My first love was obviously hockey, and I also played hockey for 9 months of the year, baseball for 3 months of the year. So my development was much quicker in hockey than it was in baseball. So I told him, thank you very much for the opportunity, but I'm gonna play hockey, and it turned out to be a pretty good choice.
Let's talk about the Regina Pats.
The Regina Pats, they were arch rivals when I was growing up in Moose Jaw. Regina is about 45 miles east of where I grew up, and the year I was supposed to turn my 17th year, I was supposed to play major junior hockey, and the team in our town folded. So the management team in Regina came down and asked me if I would play for the Pats. And so I went down and watched a couple of games, played an exhibition game, and I said, yeah, I would like to play here. And had 3 years playing with the Regina Pats, and in my last year of junior hockey, we won the Memorial Cup, which is the Canadian Junior Championship. So from there, I was drafted 4th pick in the 1st round by the Islanders in the 1974 draft. So it all worked out pretty well.
Let's talk about your first trip to New York, the trip through the Bronx. I think that's an interesting story of how you learned about the Bronx and the city.
We broke training camp in Ottawa, Ontario. We played our last exhibition game there. The next morning, which I believe was a Sunday morning, I got up. I got in the back seat of it was a 1972 Oldsmobile convertible. I was with 2 of my players, Craig Cameron and Ralph Stewart, and off we went down to New York. And I remember coming down, I didn't know it was the Major Deegan at the time, but coming down the Major Deegan, we get on the Cross Bronx Expressway, and I looked up, and it was a warm night. We've got the top down. I'm looking up, and all I see is burnt out buildings and broken glass and bricks, and I go, oh boy, is this what New York's all about? And the boys quickly reminded me that once we get over the Throgs Neck Bridge, it changes a little bit. And it certainly did. And I had a nice awakening when I finally saw what Long Island was really like. And here we are 40, 45, 46 years later, we're still here.
Let's talk about your first home, your first apartment over there in Long Island.
Living in that complex, we lived, most of the guys lived in an apartment complex on Brush Hall Road in Westbury. And Bobby Nystrom and Gary Howard were neighbors. Lauren Henning lived across the street. Dave Lewis and Billy Harris were right around the corner. So there were a bunch of us there. It was a small, little tight-knit community, and most of us only had one car, so we did a lot of carpooling back and forth to practice. But it was a great beginning. I got married after my first year of professional hockey. Married my now wife, Pam. So we've been married 45 years.
Also from Moose Jaw, if you told
Also
me, right?
from Moose Jaw. Met her in high school, yeah. So we've been together for a very long time. Lived in the apartment for a year, and then the next year, actually it was Pam's idea. She said, you know, if we're going to live here on Long Island, we should have a house here on Long Island. I said, okay, honey, let's go find a house. So we bought our first house in about 2 hours in Woodbury, Long Island. And we lived there for about 3 years, and then moved further out to Dix Hills, where we spent the next 20 years roughly. And so it was a great place to raise the kids, good schools, and very nice community.
You know, you were talking, certain people wanted to be the captain of a team. The boys forced you to become the captain, and then you decided to give it up. Tell me why. Tell me about that.
The captaincy is not a fit for everybody, which I found out. You know, I was very proud to be captain of the Islanders for almost 3 years, but there was something inside of me that wasn't quite right. It's very hard to explain. It might have been a superstitious thing. As captain, we lost to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs in 1978. And then as captain, we lost to the Rangers in the semifinals in 1979. It may have been more superstitious than physical, but my mind just wasn't there as captain. And I approached Al Arbor, our coach at that time, and said, I'd like to give it up. And we chatted, and we thought Dennis Potvin would be a perfect captain. And Denny went on to lead us through 4 Stanley Cups. I might have rethought it. If I thought we were going to actually win the cup the next year, I might have kept it for 1 more year so I could raise the cup. But that wasn't the case. Denny did a great job as captain, and we went on to have great success.
You know, one of your mentors, besides your dad, okay, was Al Arbor. Tell me about your relationship with Al.
Being a player, he kind of knew how players like to sow their oats once in a while, and every once in a while, Al would bring me in and say, listen, I need you to settle down a little bit. Let's concentrate a little more on hockey than this, that, and the other thing. So whenever he could see, whenever I was taking some liberties, he would, as I said, pull in the rope a little bit and settle me down. And he really was a father figure for me. And especially after my father passed away, Al really, really sort of took me under his wing, so to speak, and treated me more like his son than he did a player. And we had a tremendous relationship for 12 years, player-coach relationship. It's something that I'll never ever forget.
You know, when people are thinking of hockey, you know, especially since I'm a New York City person, you think of the Rangers, the rivalry of the Rangers and the Islanders and the Flyers. I think those were the big rivalry. Who were your major rivalries that you personally had?
Oh, there was no question that our biggest rival was the Rangers. And it was interesting at the beginning, my rookie season, the first time we played the Rangers at the Nassa Coliseum, I'll bet there were probably 3/4 Ranger fans and a quarter Islander fans. And I'll never forget when the Rangers scored, the place went crazy. And I said to Eddie Westfall, who was sitting next to me, I said, what the heck is going on? I said, this is our building. I said, the fans shouldn't be going crazy when the visiting team scores. And he said, well, get used to it, kid. He said, because all these people, we don't have that many Islander fans yet because the team hadn't done well in the first 2 years of existence. And I looked at Eddie and I said, well, that's going to change. I said, this team is going to get better and we're going to get more Islander fans. And And sure enough, we did get better. And that year we beat the Rangers in a small, short series, best 2 out of 3. And I think that changed the outlook of a lot of people that came to watch us play, because the Ranger fans did not outweigh Islander fans after we beat them that year in the playoffs. So it
I
changed.
think, as people say, the Islander fans are even more loyal than Ranger fans. Now we have the Islanders once again strong and continuing, and with a new stadium. How do you look at the old stadium compared to the plans for the new stadium?
Well, when I first walked into the Nassa Coliseum, I thought it was the greatest building I'd ever seen in my life compared to some of the buildings I grew up in, playing minor hockey and playing junior hockey. It was pretty nice back in 1974. But the new building, the UBS Arena, compared to the Nassau Coliseum, there is no comparison. This new arena is more than state of the art. They have taken the best of the best from arenas around the world and put it into the UBS Arena. It's going to be a fan-friendly. I think it's going to be very loud. The majority of the fans will be sitting in the lower bowl, similar to the Coliseum. It's going to be an exciting place to watch hockey, and I can't wait to get in there.
Speaking of, watching hockey, let's talk about your career at the Islanders, and then let's phase on and how you ended up in Buffalo, which many people would say, why Buffalo? But you enjoyed Buffalo, you told me. So tell me about the years at the Islanders.
We had 12 good years. Obviously, I think our stretch run from probably 1978 to 1986 was about as good a run as a franchise could have. And then in the middle of those 8 years, obviously, we won 4 straight Stanley Cups and then lost in the finals for the 5th try at the Stanley Cup. So, I have so many great memories of those particular years. But like everything, all good things must come to an end. And in 1986, the team was making some changes. Bill Torrey, our general manager, came to me and gave me the speech that no player ever wants to get. He said, Clark, we're going in a different direction and you're not going with us. So I said, well, Bill, it's been wonderful and I understand this is the business and the team must continue. So he asked me, where I would like to go. And I had a relationship with Scotty Bowman, who was the coach of the Buffalo Sabres at the time. And I said, if you can get me to Scotty, I said, that would be wonderful. And sure enough, Scotty Bowman picked me in the waiver draft. I went to Buffalo, played there for 2 years. And we weren't very good. We had a young team that tried hard. But eventually those young players became great players and the franchise got better. But I really enjoyed my days in Buffalo. Great community. They love their hockey players. They love their football players. And, we lost, I think our first year in Buffalo, we lost the first 8 games in a row. And I was afraid to actually stop at the corner store to get a coffee. And I'll never forget walking in there. And the girl said, behind the counter said, don't you play for the Sabres? And I was kind of embarrassed. I said, yeah, I do. And she said, you know what? You guys keep trying, boy. You're going to win one eventually. I said, that was a different reception than I would have got on Long Island. They would have probably locked the door before I got in the place. But so that's the kind of people we were dealing with in Buffalo. And I was there for 3 years. I really, really enjoyed my time in Buffalo.
So how do you decide to retire at a young age?
I was pretty beat up by the time I was 34. I played 167 playoff games. That's like playing 2 extra seasons. So if you tack those at the intensity we played in the playoffs onto the 14 years I played, it was like playing 16 or 17 years in the league. And my back started to go. My knees weren't very strong at that time. So I just decided, you know what? Time to move on. So it's been great. And I'm going to start a new career outside of hockey.
So let's talk a little bit about your new career in a second. I just want to talk about what happens with you at that time. You had the opportunity to be a sportscaster.
I had moved back to Long Island. I had started my new career in the financial services business with Smith Barney. at that time. And, I was around. I was going to a lot of Islander games and stuff. And obviously I knew management. Bill Torrey was still a general manager. Al Arbor was the coach. So I was there quite a bit. And I knew the people that did the radio broadcasts and the TV broadcasts. So one of the color commentator on this one occasion, they were playing in Hartford. I think it was John Putman, if I'm not mistaken. He couldn't make it, so they asked me if I'd like to do a cameo appearance and be the color analyst for the night. And that was the longest day of my career. I remember going to Hartford. I was at the morning skate in the morning and went to pregame lunch. Then I sat around all day long, got to the rink early, had to prep for the TV broadcast. I remember doing the game, and the Islanders didn't play very well, so it was very hard for me to keep making nice things up to say. I eventually had to really tell the truth, and there were parts of me that I said, you know what, this was a grind. And then the other thing about being an announcer, you do every game that the team plays, so you're basically involved in an 82 game schedule, which means you're going to be traveling, you're on the road, you're going to be doing other things. And I really wanted to get out of that part of the game. I wanted to settle down, have a more stable situation for my family, and that's why I chose something outside of hockey.
When you first retired, Pam one day said, "Get out of the house. You've just been lazy bones."
Well, I was playing old timers hockey, and so I tried to stay in as good a shape as I could. And I remember I had my stationary bike situated in our master bedroom in front of the television, and it was about 10 o'clock one morning, and I'm riding my bike, and Pam walked into the bedroom, and I said, "Hey, honey, what are we going to do today?" And she looked at me and she said, "We're not doing anything." She said, "You have to get a job." She says, "I'm tired of hanging out with you every day." And so it was kind of at that point where I said, you know what, I really got to start looking and find a new career for myself.
So over the years, you've been involved with the financial services, Smith Barney originally, and Raymond James, and a couple of others. But I think one of the things that's more important than that to you is the Clark Gillies Foundation and helping people. Tell me a little bit about the foundation and some of the projects that you've been involved with there.
Yes, Mike, we started the Clark Gillies Foundation back in roughly 1998. It started off slowly. There were 4 people involved, myself, my wife, actually 5, myself, my wife, our good friends, George and Marion Wafer, and a good friend and mentor of mine, John Danzy. We started out small. We did things such as we raised enough money to buy soccer uniforms for a school for kids with autism. We helped some kids with medical bills. Our mantra was to help kids between the ages of 5 and 18 in the tri-state area, whether it's medical bills, things with sports related, like I said, with the uniforms, equipment, that type of thing. Then we went on to bigger things. Our first large grant was to the Huntington Hospital for $1 million to build the Clark Gillies pediatric unit. And the reason the hospital and the pediatric unit, the hospital is, I live, work, and play in the town of Huntington. So Huntington Hospital, all my kids were, my kids were born in Syosset Hospital. My grandchildren were all born in Huntington. And I just wanted to do something to give back to the community and to give back to kids, more importantly. And since then, we've now given another grant to build the Clark Gillies Pediatric Emergency Department in Huntington Hospital. So 20 some odd years later, the foundation has grown. It continues to thrive, and we donate money to the hospital. We donate money to a preschool with kids with cancer called the Morgan Center, and a few other worthy causes on the island. So we're proud of the work we've done, and we continue to grow strong with the Clark Gillies Foundation.
With like 2 minutes left, I have to bring up 2 points. I have to talk about Pam and the kids, which we'll talk about. But I have to say that your number 9 was retired and you became a member of the Hall of Fame. How do you feel about both of those things?
Getting my jersey retired was a special night that I'll never forget. I had my mother there, my brother and my sister, my 3 beautiful daughters, Brooke, Brianna, and Jocelyn. and my wife Pam. Night I'll never forget. And then the Hall of Fame was such a special moment. I didn't think I retired in 1986, and then in 2002 I was on my way back to Moose Jaw for my mom's 80th birthday, and was in Toronto, and I got a phone call from the Hall of Fame. They said Mr. Gregory would like to speak with you, and I said, Gregory? I said, Jim Gregory, he's the head of the Hall of Fame. And right away I went, oh my God. And he told me that, Clark, congratulations, you are part of the class of 2002, the Hockey Hall of Fame. Congratulations. And I burst into tears at the time. I was so happy. And my wife and my 3 daughters were in the bathroom, and they came back and they saw me crying, and they were like, what's the matter, Dad? What happened to Grandma? What happened? Did something happen to Grandma? And I said, no, these are happy tears. And I told them that I had been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and they all started crying. So all of us were crying in the waiting area, and the people around there must have thought that something terrible happened to us. But it was such a special moment, one that I have trouble even talking about, but it was something I'll never forget.
Even though you're a Canadian, you're a New Yorker, okay? And you've done a lot for New York. You continue to do a lot for New York. And I'm very happy that you were my guest today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike. This has been a great pleasure. Thank you.